Strata Trust Accounts. Now I want to talk about these as part of the supervision guidelines. So everybody's rushing at the moment to, make sure that they've got their supervision guidelines in place. Well, we've had to have those in place, for a lot of years. It's not new, but the issue here, from 2015. But we've got new supervision guidelines, and as agents, you're given a 12-month, the period to make sure that you are actually implementing the new legislation, and part of that is your supervision guidelines, which come under Section 31 and ultimately 32 of the Property and Stock Agents Act. So where does that sit for strata agents? Fairly simple for real estate, for sales trust accounts, for property management trust accounts, for people selling rural property, for people selling business, all very, very clear in terms of if you are holding money in trust, it must be a Class 1 nominated licensee in charge who is authorised to disperse monies from the trust account, or is, gives authority to disperse monies from the trust account. So I think that's fairly straightforward. Yes, you need to have a process around that. Yes, you need to have records of the nominated licensee in charge who is actually giving authority to disperse from the trust accounts if they aren't doing it themselves. Depending on the size of your agency, that differs for different agencies. But, when it comes to strata, the majority of strata agencies work with having one trust account per strata plan. Therefore, it's a strata trust account per plan. It does not fall under the same requirements as a property services trust account. So, it doesn't come under having to be audited every year and that audit being sent into fair trading. It doesn't, it comes under the Strata Schemes Management Act in terms of leaving it to the owners corporation about auditing. But there is still, the strata agents still need to meet the supervision guidelines. The supervision guidelines look at procedures for operating and managing trust accounts. Okay, so strata agents, you are not exempt on this level. You still need to have your practice of how you do it. Who is preparing these? Who is authorising the payments? How do you how are you checking that your contractors are licensed and insured? And what is the process there? Are you using an external body to monitor that for you? Are you, where are those authorities coming from? And at the end of the day, licensee in charge, how are you monitoring that this is being done properly? So what are your checks and balances that you're putting in place? Are you doing some random checks per agent, per strata plan, on a monthly basis to say, yes, it has been checked, yes, it has been, yes, this is correct. So, there needs to be that process of however you put it down. The larger your strata agency, you may have a set financial officer, or, an accountant or a bookkeeper, or, whatever you want to call them, trust account manager, someone who is actually accounts payable, whatever you're actually calling that person, but someone who is responsible for doing that. Now, they won't have they may not have a Class 1 or a Class 2 or a certificate of registration even, but they are, they may all come to you with bookkeeping skills or accounting skills, or, any of, basic financial skills that will allow them to monitor this and organise a system around it. You, as a licensee in charge of a strata agency, still need to monitor that is being done correctly. You still need to write down, as part of your supervision guidelines, what your process is about doing that. Flowchart it. There's nothing quite as clear and as wonderful as a good flowchart. Love a good flowchart. And that's easy. It's a one-off job where you're putting it down and saying, this is our process. You're reviewing that on an annual basis, and you are then compliant with that third requirement under the supervision guidelines in terms of having procedures for operating and managing trust accounts. So whilst they're different from your sales and your property management trust accounts, they're still trust accounts in a certain feature, different requirements, different authorities. So make sure that strata agents, you are dealing with that appropriately within your supervision guidelines. And just make sure that you've got your supervision guidelines. And because we all know, where everybody's talking about it, we're getting calls on, I was going to say a daily basis, but it's kind of more like an hourly basis, from agencies who have had fair trading go through and do some audits. We had some questions which we're going to research further, and obviously they will become topics hopefully by next week. around some of the issues, particularly the fraud prevention issues and some of the practices that agencies have in place. So we'll come back to you with those, but certainly Fair Trading are very much out looking at agencies. And of course, one of those things that they're looking at are the existence, implementation and tailoring and contextualising to your agency of your supervision guidelines. So guys, make sure they're in place. If you've got questions, ring us up.